And now that I've talked to you about, okay, what are greenhouse gas emissions? How do you set your boundary? How do you understand the scopes? What are all the data sources? I want to be clear about some of the obstacles that you're facing, okay? This is going to be a tough process for you. I want you to go in with a little bit thick skin on this. Everyone hopes, oh, it's going to be so great, we'll calculate this. It's a little bit like pulling teeth the first time. A lot of it is because you're going to have difficulty obtaining data. This is new. A lot of data managers have never been asked to provide this data before. Also, you're going to have conversion issues. So if, let's say, you have offices, in the United States and abroad, you're going to have to be converting between the metric system and the US system. So you got to figure out what system are you going to use and make sure you have conversions. Data quality, I talked about, you're going to try and get primary data as much as possible, but there are going to be times where you're going to have to use estimations or secondary data sources. Understand that's part of the process. Always work for primary, but you got to know when to say when. At some point, you're going to hit diminishing returns and you just got to go forward with it. And sometimes that can work to your benefit. Because let's say you use an example and your pie chart's way out of whack and someone goes, well, that isn't right. You can say, well, that's the data I was given. And they say, well, let's go back and get it. That might be the stick that gets them going to give you that data. The last obstacle is you've got to set expectations up front for people. Now, no one likes finding out, especially executives, they don't want to be unhappy with their final carbon footprint result or what the examples are of your greenhouse gas. So the first thing you need to know is, hey, it's just like going on a diet. You don't know how much weight you need to lose till you step on the scale. We got to step on the scale. No one's judging us. Whatever our overall greenhouse gas inventory, no one's judging us. It is what it is. But you also need to find out what are the questions they're going to have. They're always going to say, well, how do we compare against our top 4 or 5 competitors? Is this normal? Is this normal for a company our size? What about the company down the road? Is it pretty similar? So as you go through that, find out what those are by looking at publicly available data. Look at their CSR reports. Look at the CDP. See what you can find on those competitors or other companies so you can give some safety valve to your executive who's going to go, okay, we're not as bad as I thought, or oh my gosh, we are really bad, so we need to get on this. But these are obstacles that you need to worry about. Make sure you don't come in with just the bad result right off the bat. So I talked about some of the obstacles about data. You got to know when to estimate. If data becomes too difficult to obtain, or let's say the area that you're looking at is totally insignificant, then it's okay to estimate. And when to exclude, again, if there's no reliable data, not only for your company or your industry, maybe you got to exclude that one. And you got to explain why. Or if a source is not relevant to your organization, the data quality is low, if you can't estimate it because there's just no way to do that, then that's something to exclude, but you need to be transparent as to what you're excluding and why. So in our case, with our organization, for a long time, it's like, well, we wanted to show what we were doing from a composting standpoint. But we had no idea how much of our compost was going in this big bin, how many of these were going out, and we just thought the data is so bad on this. We're just going to be very clear that we're looking at waste and recycling in that area and that our composting data is not there, and this is why, and we explained it, and people were okay with that. So it's important that you know when to say when. If you are making estimations, though, you want to compare your data to historical data. See if you can find industry averages or representative samples that you can extrapolate to the whole to use in your estimations. These are important proxy techniques. Recalculations. Things happen in business. There's structural changes, there's mergers, there's acquisitions, offices close, they open, maybe you start outsourcing data, maybe you have changes in data accuracy. So know when to recalculate. You don't recalculate when you just have organic growth. Or just openings and closings. So let's say you have 2,000 stores and you just open and close. You don't have to recalculate everything. That was your footprint at that point in time. But if you have large, massive structural changes, if you merge with another company, if you cut off half your business and sell it, then you want to recalculate it for what it is now. If you find out that the data that you got 4 years ago was completely fraudulent, you probably need to go back and recalculate it. If there's sources included in the inventory that are new or that have changed dramatically, you need to go back and recalculate. or if there's significant errors. Those are times when you recalculate. You don't recalculate if it's just organic growth or normal business trades, but if something dramatic happens, then it's worth going back. And what are some common questions that you should be prepared to answer? Should you use global or industry standard? Depends on what your industry is. There may be very specific emissions factors to it. You can go to the WRI Greenhouse Gas Protocol website for some of those. You might be wondering which emissions factor or which tool should I use. Again, there's different emission factors through each of these different reporting standards. And again, it comes back to your industry. Question you get with real geeked out people about flying is, should I include radioactive forcing or similar methods? Now, this is something that is still subject to a lot of uncertainty. We tell people right now, maybe you don't need to, but if everyone else in the industry does, you need to do that. I'm not going to explain it. There's a lot of information on it. Go to the WRI site and they'll explain it, or the IPCC will explain it in a lot of detail.